Imagine standing on the edge of a sprawling Malibu cliff, surveying a string of sublime villas that bear the indelible mark of an entertainment icon. For decades, Barbra Streisand's magnificent voice and commanding presence have defined the very essence of Hollywood's golden era. But today, those breathtaking estates and priceless art collections have morphed into the theater of her final act, a legal drama in which $400 million dangles in the balance, a fortune waiting to ignite fierce battles over legacy and loyalty. What hidden clauses could lie within the pages of her tightly guarded will? Which unexpected beneficiaries might leap from obscurity into the glare of newfound wealth? And how will this twist in Streisand's private life shock fans around the globe? Stay tuned for revelations. Behind the glimmering spotlight and chart-topping hits lies a world where heartbeats falter and alliances crumble under the glittering weight of wealth. Although Streisand has long mastered every nuance of performance, she now finds herself at the mercy of time and medical uncertainties. At 88 years old, whispers of hereditary heart disease and recurring strokes have begun to puncture the illusions of invincibility she once embodied. Meanwhile, her sprawling real estate portfolio, Malibu's mist-shrouded cliffs, a penthouse perching over Central Park, and a historic Upper East Side townhouse has transformed from pillars of pride into potential pawns in an inheritance war. Every property, every priceless car and collectible serves as a battleground in an emotional chess match. Who will dare make the first move, and how will Streisand safeguard the legacy she crafted across 6 decades? In the next minutes, we'll unravel Barbra's rise from an impoverished Brooklyn childhood to global superstardom, tracking each defining turn across Broadway, Hollywood, and beyond. You'll discover how the same iron will that drove her to rewrite gender roles in film has left her vulnerable to one final confrontation. We'll peek inside those cliffside estates, explore the artworks that fill her galleries, and decode the motivations of those circling for a seat at her table. We'll probe the tension between her only biological son, Jason Gould, and the 3 stepchildren she embraced in a second marriage. And we'll dissect every public statement, every rumored demand, and each confidential letter that paints the picture of a matriarch determined to control her destiny right up until the very last signature. First, let's set the stage. At $95 million, her Malibu cliff compound rises like a fortress above the Pacific, its gardens sculpted to mirror the curves in her voice. Walk through that front door, and you enter a world where a single painting by John Singer Sargent could command a $20 million price tag. Just down the coast, a Central Park West penthouse bristles with original Broadway posters and a Steinway piano she played as a New York ingenue. And in Manhattan's Upper East Side, her townhouse is both monument and museum. Floor-to-ceiling bookcases, opulent chandeliers, and a discreet vault for her private papers. Each asset stands as weighty proof that a girl from Brooklyn could claim her throne. Yet today, those treasures have turned into flashpoints, where respect for her legacy collides with calculations of personal gain. And so the battle lines are drawn. On one side stands Jason Gould, her son from her first marriage to Elliot Gould. Jason spent years in his mother's shadow, restoring classic cars and painting in near-complete privacy. After coming out publicly in the late 90s, a decision that once drove a rift between mother and son, he re-emerged only to find Barbra's heart guarded behind layers of disappointment. On the other side are 3 stepchildren, Josh, Jess, and Molly Elizabeth, whom Barbra welcomed with lavish gifts and genuine affection when she married James Brolin in 19. Now whispers swirl that their devotion edges dangerously close to opportunism. At dinner parties, innocent questions about estate planning have stiffened the air. Behind closed doors, lawyers draft wills that could reroute hundreds of millions of dollars. In boardrooms and living rooms alike, alliances form and fracture like waves beating against those Malibu cliffs. But Barbra Streisand has never been one to cede control. Born in 1942 to a single mother in Brooklyn, she learned early the power of perseverance. When critics dismissed her unconventional looks or questioned her sturdy soprano, she leaned in harder, reinventing herself on Broadway, sweeping the Oscars, launching a directorial career that broke every ceiling in sight. Through it all, her life became a testament to a simple truth: power belongs to those who refuse to relinquish it. Now, as she stares down the final chapter, she applies that same principle to her estate. Every clause in her will reads like a chess move, designed to protect not just assets, but the spirit behind them. Unraveling those clauses will reveal the hidden strategy Barbra has painstakingly erected to control her legacy from beyond the grave. What follows in this series is a deep dive into the most riveting inheritance drama you'll ever witness. In Section 2, we'll dissect the secret codicils that analysts say could divert millions to unexpected causes or keep them locked away until future generations prove their worth. We'll examine the philanthropic trusts she's founded and how those side letters could thwart even her closest kin. You'll hear excerpts from family interviews, legal filings, and even private journal entries that bring Barbara's private deliberations into stark relief. And we'll ask the question on everyone's lips, when the gavel finally falls, who will emerge victorious, and who will be left staring at an empty chair in Barbra Streisand's Grand Hall of Fame? The truth lies buried within the labyrinthine folds of Streisand's estate documents. For years, her legal team has whispered about codicils so elaborate they make the most intricate Broadway score feel simplistic. One hidden clause stipulates that the Malibu estate can only transfer ownership once a potential heir completes a multi-year philanthropic apprenticeship under the Streisand Foundation's oversight. Imagine being summoned to a sprawling library filled with Barbara's personal letters, production notes, and financial ledgers, perusing yellowed documents by candlelight, trying to decipher a secret handshake of terms before unlocking a single beachfront bungalow. This requirement flips inheritance on its head, transforming what might have been a passive windfall into a trial by fire, a measured crucible designed to test character, devotion, and respect for legacy. Behind this codicil is a strategy as defiantly precise as one of Streisand's directorial choices. By tying access to altruistic performance, she aims to safeguard her fortune from opportunists and vultures alike. If Josh, Jess, or Molly Elizabeth breeze in demanding keys, they'll first have to devote a year of their lives to breast cancer research funds, women's heart health initiatives, or AIDS outreach, the very causes Streisand has funded for decades. Only after satisfying stringent benchmarks could they petition a private tribunal of trustees, hand-picked confidants sworn to secrecy, to approve any property transfer. In insider chatter, family lawyers have admitted this provision has already stalled several draft wills, forcing stepchildren and Jason to negotiate with trustees rather than each other. That delay in Streisand's design chains the ambiguity of inheritance to the urgency of societal impact. Then there's the charitable trust codicil. Streisand has pledged a guaranteed 40% of her liquid assets to a women's heart center in Los Angeles, a research program she funded herself. However, an under-the-radar amendment grants her the power to reallocate those funds at her sole discretion if any beneficiary publicly disparages her family or leaks details of the trust. It's a brilliant safeguard. Any sibling or trustee who airs dirty laundry risks triggering a forfeiture clause, effectively awarding entire share percentages back to nonprofit coffers. The whispered rumor is that this clause alone has been enough to compel sworn statements of silence from at least 2 board members and an assistant executor who once considered airing family grievances on social media. Peering deeper, analysts have identified a series of staggered vesting schedules. Properties and assets don't distribute simultaneously but unlock in stages. First, the Manhattan townhouse, next the John Singer Sargent painting, and only after that the Malibu compound and corporate royalties. This tiered release serves a dual purpose. It tempers the shock of lump-sum payouts that often destroy family dynamics overnight, and it offers Streisand control bursts long after her passing. Should legal challenges arise, say from Jason over the authenticity of a provision, he may delay the entire sequence, effectively freezing the next tranche until courts render verdicts. Insiders speculate that Streisand inserted an alternative arbitration route, selected exclusively by her, to circumvent drawn-out litigation. The result, a legal odyssey that could last years, extending her influence beyond the grave. At the eye of the storm lies her final handwritten codicil, sealed since 2005, that no will may become effective unless Barbara's favorite concert dress, along with her original lyric sheets for Evergreen, is held in the same secure vault as the signed documents. It's the ultimate safeguard, sentimental relics, locking down her legacy until a chosen curator maintains them. Without that curator's seal of approval, the rest of the estate travels nowhere. Word is, she named a long-trusted archivist, a private choice born out of decades of working with closed reels of film and recording masters. That archivist becomes the linchpin in Streisand's posthumous empire, the only person outside family with unilateral power to greenlight inheritance clauses. What does this mean for Jason? At first glance, he might appear poised to inherit the lion's share. After all, a mother's bond, even if strained, often trumps step-family ties in common practice. But Streisand's will strategically sets Jason's primary access point at the piano where they once practiced together. He must perform a live tribute concert honoring his mother's career, filmed for public broadcast under the Streisand Foundation's banner. Only upon completion of that performance, as judged by a panel of music industry veterans, does a secondary trust open for him. If his nerves crumble, or if he refuses, he forfeits his primary claim. Friends close to Jason say this clause stunned him when first revealed. He'd assumed emotional ties would override contractual hurdles. Today, That concert remains unbooked and tentatively scheduled, a show that holds the key to millions. Step into the world of Josh, Jess, and Molly Elizabeth, and another layer of strategy emerges. Streisand's advisors embedded a good faith residency requirement, insisting that each of them live in a nominated property for a continuous 6 months before they can claim full ownership. That means selling off assets for quick cash becomes impossible. They must become stewards of the estates, responsible for upkeep, taxes, and charitable hosting events. Sources reveal that the Malibu compound now hosts annual gala fundraisers. Attendance and funds raised directly influence the progress towards vesting. In effect, Streisand has turned her own homes into performance venues, testing her stepchildren's ability to uphold both property and public-facing legacy. Even the timing of publication for her final memoir, set to release under lock and key after her death, plays into the scheme. The book's royalties funnel into a secret education fund for descendants showing academic promise in the arts. But to access those royalties, heirs must submit a portfolio of work that passes muster with a committee of Streisand Foundation scholars. Lose or skip that criteria and those Songmeet Scholar rewards vanish forever. In building this nexus of creativity, charity, and control, Streisand has orchestrated a posthumous masterpiece worthy of her sharpest cinematic thrillers. Every one of these provisions testifies to a matriarch who refuses to relinquish the final cut. By binding fortune to performance, by circling assets with conditional trust towers, Streisand ensures that her legacy becomes an active narrative rather than a static inheritance. It compels heirs to engage with the values she championed in life: philanthropy, artistry, and unwavering discipline. And it guarantees that any claim to her empire emerges not from mere entitlement, but from allegiance to the principles that defined Barbra Streisand's remarkable journey. In the hushed halls of Streisand's Manhattan townhouse, tension crackles like static before a storm. Late-night whispers drift through dim corridors lined with original Broadway posters, portfolios exchanged, lawyers huddling beneath crystal chandeliers, and family members pacing beside marble mantels. When the midnight oil burns here, it lights interests that have nothing to do with art or charity, only inheritance. Barbra Streisand's circle has fractured into alliances and counter-alliances, each believing they hold the key to unlocking her 40-property kingdom, and every secret meeting, every discreet phone call, is one more move on a chessboard where $400 million is the ultimate prize. With the clock ticking on her health, and the world on edge, Section 4 will peel back more layers, examining that surprise clause tied to her memoir's posthumous release and the near-mystical role of her private archivist. We'll witness how a single curator holds the power to make or break every claim, and how this final oversight could spark the most explosive confrontation yet. Stay with us. The inheritance war for Barbra Streisand's legacy is far from over, and the next twist might just shock you more than any headline. In the dimly lit corridors of the Streisand Foundation's private archive, the air hangs heavy with anticipation. Here, rows of climate-controlled vaults cradle Barbra's most personal artifacts: handwritten journals, original lyric sheets, and that long-whispered memoir manuscript sealed until her final breath. Few have ever glimpsed its contents, and those who did speak of revelations so intimate they could rewrite everything we thought we knew. But tucked into the legal boilerplate is a clause destined to shatter family alliances: the memoir activation provision. Under its terms, the entire estate remains in limbo until the manuscript is published posthumously, and royalties flow uninterrupted for 12 consecutive months. Neither son nor stepchild can unwrap more than a fraction of assets until those pages reach bestseller lists worldwide. In effect, Streisand binds her legacy to her own voice, one last time, ensuring that the world must first hear her unfiltered truth before her heirs claim a single dollar. This mechanism elevates the memoir from sentimental keepsake to the linchpin of inheritance. The provision stipulates that advance excerpts may be released only under the archivist's seal. Only this trusted curator, known to insiders as Mr. Faber, possesses the unique authority to grant or withhold permission. Mr. Faber has spent 3 decades cataloging Streisand's audio-visual masters, a near-mythical figure whose identity is protected by non-disclosure pacts and high-security measures. He holds the keys, literally and figuratively, to the final act of her life story. Without his signature on the publication contract, not a single property transfers, not a single trust opens. For heirs, influencing or convincing him becomes the ultimate strategic move, eclipsing all prior battles over codicils and property clauses. Heirs have begun jockeying for access. Jason Gould, driven by both affection and necessity, has hired literary agents to negotiate directly with Faber's team. His pitch: position the memoir as a testament to their mother-son bond, a story that will captivate both loyal fans and new readers. He's even commissioned a documentary filmmaker to follow his own preparation process, creating public momentum that could pressure Faber to greenlight the release. Back-channel discussions suggest he plans to release a teaser chapter online, knowing full well it would trigger fan outrage if blocked, thereby forcing Faber's hand or inviting court intervention on grounds of reader interest. Across the continent, Josh, Jess, and Molly Elizabeth have mobilized a different tactic. They're courting a major publishing house with deep pockets and promises of an aggressive marketing campaign tied to celebrity endorsements. Their argument rests on pure scale. Only a global rollout can guarantee the revenue benchmarks required to trigger the 12-month run. They've even floated exclusive book events at the Malibu compound, leveraging its mythic status to woo pre-orders that count toward royalty thresholds. Whispers of a gala book launch at the Upper East Side townhouse swirl through elite social circles, where fashion icons and political figures would descend to honor Streisand's life. Such an event would tip sales numbers instantly, compelling Faber to release the manuscript or risk a PR disaster among high society gatekeepers. Yet Faber remains elusive. Insiders say he evaluates each heir's moral standing and capacity to honor Streisand's artistic integrity. He notes any sign of opportunism, private agents snapping photos in the archive, stepchildren soliciting design firms for branded covers, and responds by delaying approvals. One source recalls a near confrontation when a would-be event planner tried to scout the Malibu grounds without clearance. Faber shut the meeting down, warning that any leak would trigger a secrecy forfeiture clause, diverting all memoir royalties to charity instead of heirs. Gesturing at a stack of sealed envelopes, he reminded them that Streisand prized discretion more than dollars. In his hands, the memoir evolves into a moral litmus test, a final performance piece in which heirs must prove they share her reverence for artistry and privacy. Parallel to the memoir drama is the emergence of a hidden safety net, a competing claimant clause buried in an obscure paragraph. It grants Faber the power to appoint a successor curator if Mr. Faber is deemed incapacitated. That successor must be nominated by a panel consisting of 2 trustees and 1 family representative whose vote overrides any other. In practice, this means that should heirs unite to label Faber unfit or overly obstructionist, they could install a more compliant archivist. But the clause also contains a dramatic tiebreaker. The vote splits evenly only if Streisand's own handwritten directive stored in a locked vault in Paris is consulted. Retrieving that letter involves diplomatic channels, French notaries, and an inventory of security clearances, effectively ensuring that heirs cannot manipulate the curator switch without flying in the proverbial experts. All of this builds to a critical confrontation. Imagine the scene: a hearing room in Los Angeles. Faber sitting at the head of a long oak table flanked by trustees and family lawyers. Jason presents his documentary footage, stepchildren unveil glossy marketing proposals, and legal teams argue over the narrow interpretation of uninterrupted royalty flow. Meanwhile, thousands of fans watch live streams and social media polls, debating whether Streisand's confessions should reach the public. The pressure mounts on Faber to announce a decision, release the memoir and unlock billions in assets, or hold firm and watch the inheritance dissolve into perpetual limbo. But in true Streisand fashion, a last twist awaits. Buried at the end of the memoir activation provision is a cryptic footnote, written in her own flowing script: "Let those who deserve it hear my song." That simple line grants Faber discretionary latitude to judge heirs' character against the art they shall publish. It transcends legalese, elevating the entire inheritance into an appraisal of devotion and dignity. In her final act, Streisand casts her own judgment, ensuring that millions pass only to those who can carry her story forward with the same integrity that propelled her from Brooklyn clubs to global stages. As heirs prepare for this looming trial, the estate's fate hangs in uncertain balance. Will Jason's emotional appeal win the day? Can the stepchildren's vast marketing apparatus tip the scales? Or will Faber invoke the footnote, deeming all unworthy until they prove themselves true stewards of her legacy? In Section 5, we'll chronicle that pivotal courtroom showdown, uncover leaked excerpts from the memoir that send shockwaves across the entertainment world, and reveal who emerges triumphant or who walks away with nothing but memories. Stay tuned as Barbra Streisand's most dramatic performance yet unfolds in real time. In the stately oak-paneled courtroom, murmurs hush as Mr. Faber, archivist and gatekeeper of Streisand's final voice, takes the stand. Behind him, shelves of sealed manuscripts gleam under soft spotlights. Across the table, Jason Gould, resolved but nervous, clutches printed reels from his documentary pitch and a single sheet of fan letters. On the opposite bench, Josh, Jess, and Molly Elizabeth sit shoulder to shoulder, armed with glossy marketing mock-ups and 5-year projection graphs for a global book tour. At the judge's nod, the hearing explodes into a live broadcast sensation. On one side, the son begging for an emotional bond with his mother to unlock her truth. On the other, stepchildren arguing that scale and impact must be the measure of her legacy's reach. Jason's legal team opens with impassioned testimony. Barbra Streisand's story, his lead attorney declares, is a narrative of perseverance and intimate confession. My client, her only biological child, carries that torch. The courtroom hushes as Jason reads passages from a leaked draft, words attributed to Streisand's Brooklyn teenage self. I sang under neon lights to feel whole. Only here did I learn that silence could kill a dream. The raw vulnerability sends a shiver through spectators, but Faber sits unmoved, tracing veins in his antique gavel. He remains bound by the memoir activation provision and arrogant to personal pleas. Stepping up, Josh presents the step-sibling coalition's counter-argument. Legacy, he asserts, is not just whispered confessions but living legacies. Our marketing plan attracts millions, funds future philanthropy, and ensures her voice echoes in every corner of the globe. He unfurls a scale model of the Malibu Gala venue, complete with LED screens displaying Memoir Launch 2020. Molly Elizabeth adds her PR brilliance. We've secured pre-orders from international book clubs and lined up ambassadors from politics to fashion. This isn't opportunism, it's stewardship. The crescendo arrives when the judge demands Mr. Faber's rationale. Poised and unflinching, he reveals that in the weeks before the hearing, he reviewed social media posts by the stepchildren's event planners and heard whispers of design firms jostling for exclusive rights. These signs, he notes, betray opportunism over artistry. Turning to Jason, Faber concedes that the leaked memoir fragments did resonate with authenticity, yet he fears that unauthorized excerpts undermine the controlled publication process Streisand intended. The crux: true fidelity to her voice takes precedence over fan hunger or commercial clout. Just when the courtroom seems locked in deadlock, the judge announces a surprise order. A sealed envelope from Paris must be retrieved and presented within 48 hours. It contains Streisand's handwritten tiebreaker directive for the archivist's succession. Cameras flash as bailiffs scramble to contact French notaries. The hearing adjourns into chaos. Debate explodes whether the family's labyrinthine wills are collapsing or evolving. Back in Los Angeles, while the envelope races across continents, the first whispers of leaked memoir chapters slip out to an underground blog. Among the revelations is a letter to a silent lover, a passage so intimate it hints at a secret child long forgotten. Lines accuse a shadow figure in her life of betrayal, naming neither politician nor stylist, but signed only B. The entertainment world trembles. Is this a confession of infidelity, a coded cry for reconciliation, or simply Barbra's raw artistic flourish? Readers devour every word, fueling speculation and ratcheting public pressure on Faber to release the full manuscript.